Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Jack Schneider, and I am a Curatorial Assistant in Visual Arts at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Chicago. Today, I am joined by artist and filmmaker Deborah Stratman to talk about her exhibition at the MCA. The show is the latest in our Chicago Work series, which features Chicago artists who are shaping the local contemporary art scene. Deborah, thanks so much for being here, and congratulations on the opening, finally, of your exhibition.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, despite the 4-month lag.
Right. So this show was originally scheduled to open on March 17th, which coincidentally, or perhaps fatefully, happened to be the exact day that the museum closed its doors in response to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. But here we are exactly 4 months later, and the museum is beginning to reopen, which is exciting. Deborah and I will chat for about 20 minutes, and then we will hopefully have time for a brief Q&A. And those of you in the audience on Facebook, you can ask questions in the comments. So we are broadcasting live from the MCA, and more specifically, from within an artwork that Deborah created titled Feeling Tone. So to start, Deborah, could you describe this artwork?
Absolutely. So we are in a reenactment or a recreation of one of Stud's radio booths. I think it was his 4th booth of the 5 he worked out of for WFMT.
And this is Louis Stud's Terkel.
Yes. Louis Stud's Terkel.
Yeah.
It's hard not to refer to him just by his...
Studs.
Just by Studs.
It's easier.
Thank you for clarifying. And so this is from, I think, 3 Illinois Center was the address of this booth. And I had access to the architectural plans thanks to folks and engineers at FMT. So we created basically a set that that mirrors what that booth looked like as a sort of like conjuring site, let's say, for the live audio that happened there with Studs, not just in that particular booth, but with over his career, which was, 50 years. So almost 50 years.
I like to think, and Studs has, of course, passed away.
He's passed away.
But I like to think that maybe he's sitting in this chair right here.
I think I smell his cigar. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's his spirit is here for sure. So it is it's a set, or you could also think of it as basically a really fancy speaker cabinet.
Interesting. Yeah, so that brings us to the other component of this artwork. Of course, it is a sort of sculptural set piece, but there's also an audio component. Could you talk about this?
Sure. Yeah. So there's 143 different conversations that are part of the piece, which were chosen originally. The thinking was every day that the museum was open, the set would play basically one of these conversations, and it would just be on loop for the day. So every day you'd have a unique conversation, and we still have all those conversations. They're just going to be accessed in a slightly different way. So it was a way to curate kind of a living history into the space, or make the space. I was thinking about it on the bike ride over, and I was like, it's kind of like a geode, but that contains living history or something. Like This is the crystal form, or this is the solid form, but within it is this constantly moving, living set of voices, which were both what made history then, but also so many rhymes with what history is now. I mean, history's happening.
Absolutely.
Jack, history is happening.
We're in it. We are in it. And I love that. It's a geode. I'm going to be using that.
Okay.
So, right, you used Terkel's archive, which is sort of the Studs Terkel and WFMT archive, WFMT being the radio station where he worked. His archive includes about 9,000 hours of recorded interviews, which is huge. And he christened, I sort of love this, he christened his archive, which is the sort of totality of this part of his life's work. He called it Vox Humana, the human voice, which is on one hand beautiful and on the other hand kind of like absurdly grandiose. But I think if it's justified for anybody, it is for Studs Terkel. So from this archive, from this sort of like massive set of audio, this really, this historical record, you selected, as you said, 143 interviews, one of which plays each day the exhibition is open or exists physically in the museum. I'm wondering if you can talk about the process of selecting the interviews. Like, why did you select the interviews that you did?
That I did. Well, for personal idiosyncratic reasons, I guess number one, I wanted to find on some level people who were just great storytellers. I love sifting through archives, and for me, part of the deep pleasure was just finding about people I'd never heard about, and then people I had heard about, just seizing on being able to listen to hour-long conversations with them. So it was a mix of a very arduous, slow sifting and lots and lots of listening, and then certain things kind of rise to the surface, like a lot of women's voices that were exciting to hear.
Sure.
I just think what I really admire about him is sort of how broad he cast his net, and that he was always really generous about who are the people out there who sort of hold wisdom. He just was always completely open about that.
Right.
In my opinion, he cast a broad net, and so I was trying to do the same, but I wanted to find people who also, there were rhymes with sort of contemporary political issues, that it wasn't just
absolutely.
like something locked in its own time. So it's sort of a mix. So people, it's all over the place, from people everyone's heard of, like James Baldwin, or maybe not everyone's heard, but a lot of people know James Baldwin, to, people on the street commenting about the 67 blizzard. So I wanted that kind of range, from people who had a public platform to speech and those who didn't. I think a lot of Studd's career was about giving equal agency, to voices, no matter how much public platform they'd previously had.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how many like total hours of interviews do you think you've listened to of Studd's Terkel?
Oh my God. Hundreds. I don't know. Hundreds. Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah. And I've sort of been slowly devouring these interviews that you've selected, and some of them are really incredible. And one thing you said that I've definitely been feeling as I've been listening to these is how, these interviews are from, I think the range is like 1953 to 1996 is the total range. So it seems like, me being like a shallow millennial, I'm like, that's ancient history. but then I'm listening to these interviews. I'm listening to James Baldwin. I'm listening to Roger Buffalohead, for example. And so much of what they're saying is exactly what people are talking about now. It's still the same issues. And I find that so fascinating. So I've really been absolutely loving listening to the interviews that you selected.
Yeah.
And to make another kind of like millennial reference, I feel like it's like the best podcast ever. Of course, it was way before a podcast, but that's how I've been listening to it. I've been streaming it.
Right. A
from the
podcast with a
WFMT
50-year arc.
Exactly.
And you actually hear...
Who can say that? Who else can say that?
It's not just like Studd's idiom that shifts over those 50 years, and his speech patterns and his pace of speaking, but also like the history that everybody has embedded in their own voice, and that you hear where they came from. It's such a massive sort of sonic topography, like political topography. Yeah.
So as you mentioned, he, and a lot of these interviews that are in the archive, they're with, the sort of who's who of like the latter 20th century. These like these incredible public intellectuals like James Baldwin, as we mentioned, Maya Angelou, Cesar Chavez, to name a few. But he also sort of made a name for himself in his career interviewing people who he referred to sort of lovingly as the et ceteras. And these were really the sort of everyday working people of Chicago and beyond Chicago. And it was in an interview with one such et cetera, a hospital worker named Nancy Dickerson, that Terkel was introduced to the idea of feeling tone, which is where the title of this artwork comes from. And feeling tone is a bit of an elusive term or idea, so I'm wondering if you could talk or speak a little to what the concept of feeling tone meant to Studs and what it means to you.
I don't know if I can speak super well to what it meant to Studs. I know it was important to him because he brought it up over and over again. He definitely, it was a phrase he used a lot. He brought it up in the context of curiosity and listening, which is, it's a good equation. I think if you have those two things, it's like, all right, you're ready for the day.
Right.
For me, it's something. It's a different, an intelligence outside of language, maybe, and also mixed with just being super porous to the moment, like being having a really deep sense of the present, which I think is also related to having a really deep and committed sense of the local, which to me is so much about how we can be political. So he had that, and if there's anything else that it has, it's maybe a kind of empathy rhythm, which I don't.
That's beautiful.
Maybe that's a weird way to say it, but
No, it's
like
beautiful.
a cadence, because you know it's the volley of the conversation, and he for the most part would just smoke a cigar and listen. Maybe that's the secret of the cigar. You just shut up. Yeah, if I had a cigar.
And this cigar right here, this is not Studs Terkel's cigar, but
no.
It was.
God, no, you're not going to remember his name. There's an employee at WFMT who smoked this cigar on our behalf, our and Stud's behalf.
Are we zooming in on this? Beautiful. So, right, it's not Stud's cigar, but it is a genuine WFMT cigar.
And when you listen to his interviews, if you listen to those archives,
oh, absolutely,
you hear him lighting.
Constant.
He's constantly lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
So probably we should have, made this booth a lot smokier, just for affect. Like
have a
constant
just
fog machine,
have a fog machine somewhere,
puffing out, wafting. Maybe like a little dirt on the glass.
Oh my god, that'd be so goofy. We could still do it. So you mentioned, I thought your definition of feeling tone was really great. On one hand, and I've been trying to sort of think through what it means myself. And it is, as I said, it's really elusive. But I think your definition gets really close, which is this sort of idea of intelligence beyond words or beyond language or something. And then I think that very definition sort of describes the elusiveness of it. Like you can't really, it's not something that's meant to be pinned down in words, per se. It is the sort of, it might be, the feeling that exists between words in these interviews or something. And that's where this volley comes from or something, or just the feeling of the moment.
Which is it's so funny then, because he built a career on language and listening to people and transcribing people and hearing radio listen, but still that the core of it, or that the soul would somehow that's guiding it is outside of that. It's like a sixth sense.
Is non-lingual or something. Yeah, it's a sixth sense. I love it. We keep coming back to supernatural themes.
Right.
Studs is here in spirit. I love it. He has a sixth sense. But you also mentioned, which I thought was really nice, that it's a sort of porousness to the moment and being aware of maybe the local context, or just being really aware of that moment, what's in front of you, where you are. But I think that relates really well to the other component of this exhibition. So the other component, there's this piece, Feeling Tone, and then in the adjacent gallery, we are screening your 2016 film titled The Illinois Parables. And it is a sort of, I call it a sort of eclectic chronology of the land known as Illinois, so sort of where we are. And it is this, across 11 chapters, or parables as you describe them. It's a look at some better known stories in Illinois history, and then some lesser known stories. So I sort of even think of it as like an alternative history book of a film or something, or an experimental. How would you describe it? Is it an experimental documentary? Is that correct?
You could call it that. Yeah, I don't. I try to refrain. I just say it's a film.
It's a film.
I mean, and a dense sort of history. Yeah, kind of crystallized history, and very eccentric. Like you said, a lot of the stories aren't ones.
Absolutely.
Some are ones that people knew about, like, Fermi and the sort of the critical mass equation. Maybe some people know that, and people know about the Trail of Tears, and then others are much more opaque.
Right.
But,
and I certainly learned a lot from watching that film, and I think it's what I really love about it is, I think, on one hand, living in Chicago, it's kind of easy to ignore the rest of Illinois, and that's very much like a reality for a lot of people. Like, isn't there like a secessionist movement where like the rest of Illinois is trying to get Chicago to secede so that they can be like their own? I've heard about this. But anyway, so it's easy to kind of have this separation between the city and the state that we're in. And I think watching your film, it made me really aware of the state that I'm in a way that I hadn't been before.
Yeah.
And there was also some histories that maybe I had heard about, but I didn't really know about. And I think one that really struck me was Fred Hampton.
Right.
I knew about it, but I didn't know about it. I didn't really know about it. And that's one of the parables in this film, among many other things. But I'm wondering if you could describe for us what the connection is between this piece, between Feeling Tone, and between the Illinois parables.
Yeah, I'll try. I mean, I think maybe the closest, simplest way I could put it is that both are interested in a kind of choral statement, a statement that's made by sort of a multiplicity of perspectives instead of just having one diagnosis of like, this is what happened. Because I feel like that's always the problem with history is
Exactly.
a single telling is never going to be the telling. And so I think both in the case of the film where you have this set of pretty diverging or, heterogeneous stories, as well as modes of media that do the telling. And in this booth, it's similar. I mean, there's 143 different conversations. Not that each person is speaking to history in particular, but their collective statement is what interests me. That there's like a specific point of view, but lots of them.
Sure.
And I feel like that's what that's maybe the key linkage I see. I mean, I definitely had thought at one point early on in making the film, on like what's the way I could include studs, and I also thought a lot about Mayor Harold Washington. Like both of them for me are figures that I let go kind of late in the game, partially because of what you mentioned. Like I was worried about the film becoming too Chicago-y, too Chicago-centric, and they're both such strong figures that it felt better to kind of more evenly highlight different parts of the geography of the state and stories of the state and passages through the state. But also, I mean, I literally couldn't access all of Studd's interviews then because they were still being digitized in the National Archives. And so they were kind of inaccessible for a while. So in a way, it's sort of you could say it's a spin-off or a missing parable.
Fun. Yeah.
I mean, I think the piece totally can exist on its own without the film,
Absolutely.
but there's definitely a lot of ties to it, down to the Hampton parable that you bring up. There's a kind of reconstruction of a physical space in that scene as well, and so I think there's some rhyming that happens.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, and in the film, it's a reenactment of a reenactment in a sense.
Yes.
The film is a reenactment of a reenactment that the who did it? What it was a
Well, the state's attorney's office,
the
Ed
state's
Hanrahan.
attorney,
Yeah. For CBS News, they were like, we gotta make our version of what happened here at the Hampton building that where he was assassinated. So they built a set basically in their offices, and then had news crews come and film the raiders who actually went on the raid, kind of speak through and enact what happened, but it was, of course, their version of it. So I reenacted.
Yeah.
It's all very meta. But it also used studs, as does
this
booth. So we're like,
exactly.
I was pre-conjuring studs.
And we were laughing before this. It's this whole installation is, in a sense, a visual pun on Stud's name.
Yes.
Because as you can see, I don't know if you can see it at this moment, but the outside of the booth is all raw studs.
Yeah, that's
It's all
right.
a visual pun.
Yeah. No, I
That's
wanted
all
that
it
settiness.
Right, yeah,
Could you say that? No. Yeah.
Set-like.
I wanted that set-like vibe.
Yeah,
I just
I
wanted it
feel
to be
it.
like,
And we have it.
like Dorothy's house, kind of dropped in.
Totally.
But it doesn't matter because sound is always now. It's not like artifacty.
Right.
It's such a cool tool to work with history with because it's not something you can kind of hold
transport
stable
to,
and sift through. Yeah, you're just
Right.
like immediately you're in the present,
Yeah.
which was the past.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that actually brings me to my next question, which is about really the connection between the present and the past. In the film, in several interviews I read, you describe looking for thin places is what you call them as your as the places that you wanted to travel to in the film. Thin places. Can you describe what you mean by this?
Yeah, I mean, I stole the phrase. It's a Jesuit phrase, or that's how I first came to know it. But for me, and in their context, it means something where the border between this world and some other world is thin. So it's like a place of energy, or it's a place. maybe that you can't feel with all your senses. And I think I took that phrase and I moved it into something a little bit more secular or more political for myself. So the places that registered to me as thin places are often places with a pretty heavy history.
Sure.
And it's not that I feel like, oh, anybody who goes to, pilgrimages to that place will feel it. It's maybe idiosyncratic to me. To someone else, it might just be completely ordinary, but
Right.
it did help me kind of corral back in what the parables were going to be and to focus on places that had served more than one sentence, had more than one life, and some of those those dark lives were ones that we shouldn't forget.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm curious about, like, when you go there and you experience it as a thin place, is this like, is something supernatural going on? Is it like, is it a haunting? Is it the past haunting the present? Or is it something, like, how would you describe it materially?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I suppose to some it's a supernatural thing, but also it feels very base. It feels very material. It's like, no, that thing happened here, and it's not just that you could, you're a medium and you're the one who can sense that, like, oh, a bunch of people died there.
Like, sounding sticks
Dowsing.
Dowsing, yeah.
But it is a sort of, maybe it's a mix. It's kind of a historical dowsing. Would not be sanctioned by historians. I don't know. For me, it's a mix of both. You know, it's both other than completely flat-footed. You know, there's a little bit of the supra to the natural.
That's great. So I want to shift gears just a little bit.
Yeah.
And talk about this new era that we're in, the sort of COVID era, is what we'll call it. And one of the things that strikes me is that during this pandemic, during COVID-19, our reliance on communications technologies as people, or at least as Western people, has become really, really clear in some ways that I think border on disturbing. But we're discussing radio. We've been discussing radio throughout this. This is the medium that Studs Terkel worked in. And some would call that maybe like the first mass communications technology. But we're also streaming this talk right now on Facebook, a newer telecommunications technology, which is, of course, sort of indebted to the technology that came before it, such as radio. So this might be a bit of a weird question, but I'm wondering, like, what do you think, what are your thoughts on the benefits or disadvantages of a technology like radio, a more historic technology, versus social media and the kind of technologies that we've been really relying on during the pandemic?
Well, first I just want to respond to what you said at the beginning about the sort of like mild horror that comes with recognizing how many crutches we have, you know, not just telecommunications, but electricity or, what about plumbing? You know, you really see the infrastructures that are so essential to life. You take those away and like, so I think, I mean, to me, social media, I mean, I don't feel one or the other, but there's something about social media it's always on everyone's own time. So it has something of convenience built into it. And I think what makes, for me, the camaraderie of collective listening or collective experience so potentially moving or galvanizing is that it can't be on your own time. You have to kind of like, you're obligated to a time outside of your own. Right. And I think when we do that with each other, there's more potential. It's like, it's not about lessons, but it's more about propositions or something. Like you can make them together. Sure. And I'm not saying that, you know, with social media, people don't ever have a sense of connection, but I think in terms of, no, you got to tune in at a certain time, or you show up at a certain time. And whether, for me, showing up at a certain time to be with a certain group doesn't have to be physical necessarily, which is maybe what I have loved about radio. But I also have loved that radio, it creates it creates a public square
Totally.
of sorts.
Yeah.
And why it's why I think it's so important to keep local public radio, not just like franchised like Clear Channel or whatever, or
Yeah.
Facebook.
What
I mean
else?
that there remains, stations like Lumpen or
Totally.
local
Yeah.
college stations or
Right.
NUR or just that like really discrete local voices are part of the mix.
Yeah, and I think, there's a couple things you said there that I find fascinating, and I like, for a sort of personal anecdote, like I'm a big fan of pop music, and there's something special about hearing a song on like an FM station when you know that there's thousands of other people simultaneously
and the person
listening
in the
to
car
it.
next to you is
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Like
there's
"Oh my
there's something
God,
really
yes."
right. There's something collective about it, and it does feel like it's maybe a spatially distributed public square or something, and you're all kind of experiencing this thing together, and I think that's really beautiful, and not something that you get with something like Spotify where you're streaming it by yourself. You're the only person listening to it on that exact time code.
Right. Right.
Which is interesting. And then, another one of the things that strikes me about as like a really key difference between maybe the kind of media ecology that Studs existed in and the one that we exist in now is that you had these kind of centralized platforms, whether it was radio stations, television stations, where you had kind of voices of authority distributing information to people. And those people were hopefully held up to sort of journalistic standards. And this is a sort of like one-to-many model of broadcasting. Whereas now, with social media, we have this like many-to-many model of broadcasting where kind of anybody and their mother can be like, I have an opinion about the pandemic, and I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to influence the people. And I think it's quite clear how this sort of media ecology that we're existing in now is sort of like creating some really, problematic misinformation.
There's some weird feedback eddies start to happen.
Totally.
Where you're just like, people get certain people get stuck in these.
They're
myself
like masks,
included, and I guess we all get stuck in eddies of thinking, but
right.
Yeah. The platform. On the other hand, it's that was the beauty of Studs as a listener in general. For his books like Working or Division Street America or any number of his books, that it was always about like to go back to that choral, giving a platform to all these different people. It's just that the way, I guess he was always there, as the. He was the sort of door through which they passed or something.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't feel like I don't have a hierarchical relationship in my mind between one is better than the other.
Right. There's definitely different.
They're just different,
Yeah. I would agree with that.
But sometimes I wish I was born in the era where it's like, okay, everybody, let's like gather around the tube radio and, like the neighbors will come over because only one family has the radio. I loved to go, when I went to Malawi a few years ago to work on a film, there's Malawi is only, at that time was only like 5% electrified or something. So, but people had radio and they would have their little solar panels and there really was this culture of like, everybody tunes into this thing at a certain time. Part of me misses like, I wish I was born in the era when you knew everybody else was watching the same thing.
Totally, yeah.
There's definitely
it happens sometimes still.
The totalitarian side of that can get creepy real fast.
Sure, of course. Right, and that's the sort of other side of the coin is like is there is a centralization of power in that model as well. There's a sort of one authoritative voice, and if they feel like twisting reality towards their own, ends, they're sort of very much enabled to do that. And maybe social media, in a sense, kind of chips away at that sort of power.
Right.
But for our last question, and then we're going to get to a couple Q&A questions, hopefully. So if you have questions, people who are
text them in, people.
Now's the time.
This is your
Put them in the
big chance.
comments. This is your big
in honor
chance.
of Studs, you should be sending in your question right now.
Exactly. I'm going to be very disappointed in all of you if you don't send questions. But so I'm wondering if you are a artist and filmmaker. In your films, they do sort of involve a lot of maybe I'll call it interviews in a really broad sense. Maybe it's interviews with people, but it could be interviews with landscapes, sort of like communing with landscapes, with film. You use a lot of these sources, and you're sort of culling together a lot of information and representing it in a way
I'm
that's
laughing. I'm just thinking about yes, I went to interview this alluvial fan. It was amazing. Sorry, going off.
I love it. But I'm just trying to draw the connection here.
No, I like it.
Between you and Studs. And I'm wondering if you see a connection between your practice as an artist and filmmaker and Studs' practice as a broadcaster and oral historian.
I see some connections. I mean, I don't feel like I have anything remotely close to Studs' gift of language or just this setup, the gift of gab. But I do, I do like that I think, to me, I feel like I'm a ground person. I'm not a figure person. And I always feel like Studs vibed the ground through the figures he talked to.
Sure.
Or he gives you a sense of landscape, but it's more of a social political landscape. And it's always been something that has motivated my work, that the sense of the scape or the ground. And maybe the way I arrive at the ground is through a lot of different sorties where I'm going out and kind of like asking him this and investigating that.
Right.
And I think we share that, a certain just kind of hungriness or curiosity about the other, just someone who's not my head, something that's like alien to my experience. I think he had a similar interest in something alien to his own experience.
Absolutely.
So maybe in that way.
Yeah. I think that makes perfect sense. And I do sense a sort of shared empathy between your practice and Studs' practice.
Oh, that's nice.
I think
to say.
that feels like the connection to me. Great. So we're going to move into the Q&A session.
Oh, wow. Let's see who steps up.
So
Sweaty here.
we have one question. And this is a question about feeling tone, about the piece physically. And the question is this the actual furniture from Studs Terkel's radio booth?
Yes, it's all exactly. No, it's not.
Exact.
I'm lying.
Yeah.
It's in the key of
Sure.
Studs radio booth, and there is some things that are exactly the same model of things that were in his booth, like the beautiful Neumann mics that James Bond lent us, the reel-to-reel behind me.
Right, these are the same. They're not the exact ones, but it's the same model.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep. And the little on-air sign is from WFMT.
I don't know if people
this
can see that.
This reel-to-reel behind me is from WFMT. It's not Studs' real hat or his real coat, but I tried to, find something
That's
similar.
Close.
Yeah. So it's it's in the
But
key
then
of.
this is his actual.
Oh yeah, that's his UHER
right?
recording machine.
Yeah, this is his actual recording machine. So that's.
There was a lot of mileage on that thing.
Oh,
There's
I'm sure.
a lot of mileage on these UHER recorders. And I know, for his books he would use the UHER recorder also, so it wasn't just his radio show.
That's great.
Great question.
Great question.
Tom from Maine.
I mean,
people could be sending their questions from all across the world right now on Facebook Live if they wanted to.
Yeah, come on, people.
Come on, people.
I don't think.
Text in your question. Their fingers just aren't flying as fast as their questions are.
Absolutely. I'm wondering, we'll wait a couple minutes. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today? Anything that we missed?
Let's see, what else? I realized the other day when I was making the list of which names would fall on which day, and because of the nature of how the museum's open now, for the moment, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which, come soon, because who knows when it's going to shut down again.
Who knows what's going to happen.
I was curious, which interviews fall on the days that the museum's actually open, because if you come to the museum, you can hear the unedited full interview, which is, for me, they're really amazing. They have they feel more alive in a way, because I think as Studs would do the interview, he would sometimes play clips from previous interviews, or he'd have his
Right.
subject read from their book, or he'd have them, they'd
He'd
have
have
an
musicians,
instrument,
yeah,
and they'd
he'd have
play music.
musicians.
So, if Brownie McGee and Sonny Terry or Big Bill Brunsey or people who are just in the booth start playing music, that's all part of it. But I also was curious, like, which one falls, like, which interviews on my birthday, which interviews on, the Friday, Saturday, Sundays coming up. And one of my favorite interviews, which is, I think his name's William Johnson. He's the Black Cowboy. I don't know if you listened to that one. It's
I don't think I have
such
yet.
a good interview, and it's on my birthday, and I was so excited.
Yes.
Yeah. But then I also there was some that was like, oh shoot, that's one that I wish everybody could hear. Everyone can hear them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that if you
editing,
go to the
yeah.
link, there's on the museum site, you can hear all the interviews each day. They'll just be slightly in edited form, but
Right. Yeah.
and so you can access them whether you come in person or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Right. But yeah, definitely the interviews
I'm trying to
here,
think of,
the unedited ones are the sort of
they're full. Yeah, they're
true,
full. They're living their
true,
life.
Yes, exactly.
You could hear every lighter scratch of the cigar going on. I'm trying to think of other faves. I mean, Adrienne Rich, that one just got digitized recently. I love hers. Myra Alexander, who's just kind of just the Chicago woman who had accompanied him on the train to a protest in D.C., and he did an interview with her some years later.
I love
Eartha Kitt.
I was just going to say it. That was literally, it's so good.
Eartha's good.
It really, I cried.
She's
It's
amazing.
just incredible.
She's amazing.
Her talking about her childhood. And yeah.
She's amazing. Mom's Mabley is really good. Brick
I just
Top
listened
is
to
good.
that one, yeah.
Oh God, there's so many other good people.
So
I
many
mean, I
gems.
love actually two of my faves are there's a few interviews with Mort Saul and Dick Gregory, and I feel like comedians. They're so good at, especially those two, at sort of vibing a political temperature and being
Totally.
like really quick
Being
in the
on
moment.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So their conversations are so revelatory, I feel like.
Absolutely.
I mean, Dick Gregory's been a hero of mine for a long time, and Mort Saul was someone I didn't know as much about, and I thank Studs for tuning me into.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a knowledge database.
Yes.
Like it is
Yeah.
like, skip your history class and just listen to these interviews instead, because it's really, there's like so much to learn.
Deep dive it.
And I thank you for bringing this project to my attention personally. I've learned so much from you and from this project and working with you. I'm so excited for it to finally be open so people can come see it. And yeah, please come see the show.
Come see it. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, or come see it when you feel comfortable coming to see it. We are still in the middle of a pandemic, y'all.
Right.
But so I think we're about out of time.
Jack, you know what I have to say?
Go for it.
Take it easy, but take it.
Take it easy, but take it, which is what Stud said.
It's
at
what
the
he would
close.
often end
Yeah.
his interviews
Take it
with.
easy, but take it. We need T-shirts. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Your virtual presence is important to us, and we appreciate sharing this digital space with you. Hopefully this physical space soon.
Yeah, this live camera setup is amazing. Thank you, team, for
Thank
making
you
it happen.
so much to David, Paul, and Matt for figuring out this camera setup. It's super professional. We're thrilled. I do want to close out this program by calling attention to a coalition of current MCA employees called MCA Accountable. And they are demanding accountability and action to uproot white supremacy and racial injustice at this museum. They just released a collective statement and list of demands yesterday, I believe, which I encourage everyone watching this to read. For more information on them, you can find them on Instagram at MCA Countable. And that's sort of MCA and accountable pushed together. Yeah. And I think what they're doing is very important, and I think that Studs would want us to promote them.
Yeah, shout them out.
Yeah. Cool.
That's
All right,
right.
well, thank you so much, Deborah.
Thank you.
This has been great.
Yeah.
Thanks
I
again
can-
to people tuning in, and
Let's start a
have a
radio
good day.
show.
Have a great weekend.
Hopefully we're not quarantined in here for
Yeah.
14 days now.
So, all right, bye.
Oh, yeah, who do I wave to?
The world.
Make sure you get all the cameras, like, you and you.